All right, guys, so we got some rain. It's a blessing. This time of year we get a good bit. Wrapping this up. Again, do this before your blackberries grow. Dean Family Acres. All right, guys, so it is time for us to get to work on the blackberry trellis that we were supposed to do almost a year ago now. So follow along as we get this up and kind of talk through exactly what we have here and also what kind of trellis we're going to be working on. PrimeArk Freedom, Ouachita, and Ponca. So that gives us 6 vines. So we're looking forward to having some fruit. All right, guys, so exactly what kind of trellis system were we working on here? We're gonna put up a T-post trellis. Basically put a T-post on either side, and then we're gonna run some wire in between it. I believe we can get away with just 4 T-posts here. I found 3 that are tall enough. My issue is a lot of the ones I have are just too short. These definitely need to be longer. So I'm gonna continually look and see if I can find some others. But we're gonna put these in, and we're gonna talk through exactly which kind of blackberries we have. And all right, guys, so the bottom of the trellis needs to be 1.5 feet apart, and then the top needs to be about 3.5 feet apart. Since we've let these kind of sprawl everywhere this year, this might get a little interesting, so we're gonna see how this goes. We're gonna try and stick to the 1.5 feet at the bottom, and then about 3.5 feet at the top. And just kind of like I did on the muscadine trellis for the Ruby Crisp, I'm just going to kind of pace it off. We're supposed to have T-posts every 25 feet. I believe that's about right on the distance this way, but even eyeballing it, you know, my 1.5 shoes, that's the spacing we're going to use. So follow along as we get this in the ground. All right, guys, this is where it gets a little interesting because we have weed fabric down. So when you got weed fabric down, it just makes it a little interesting. I have to work around it because we planted potatoes up this row last year, and I'm not sure what we're gonna do. We keep debating about moving the blackberries. They're gonna stay for now. Number one reason, because we wanna see how they produce. Maybe we can clone a few more. This year we only cloned 1 for sure. This year we've got 2 other roots that should take off pretty well this coming year. I know that this row did really well for potatoes. However, I will also say that having this on the end with a potato row does not work because you can't go all the way down with the tractor. It just makes it a little more complicated. It wasn't horrible, but it just didn't work real well. So we're gonna get a little more creative with how we do that next year. And potatoes may be here, they may not. We might run blackberries all the way down. We have been debating about putting blackberries up on the other end up here where we have put the Ruby Crisp muscadines. We've been debating about doing blueberries there, blackberries there, and then possibly putting some of our figs up there. So basically that upper corner is the main place that we have to kind of worry about for deer, etc. So looking forward to seeing exactly how this goes. We'll see how we figure out about putting this post in here. All right guys, so hopefully you're able to see us getting that smoothed out. The reason I was having to do that is because we put potatoes here last year. I mentioned that before. This whole row all the way up was potatoes, all the way up until right where these blackberries are. So had to smooth that out. I think I'm gonna leave space for 2 or 3 blackberry plants here, because I know I've got 1 or 2 up there depending on how I split them. I've got 1 that I've multiplied here. I just want to make sure that I'm not kind of interchanging, trying to keep organized what I've got where. If we like a particular kind, I'll start replicating them by tip rooting, etc. So let's see exactly where we're going to put this side of the T-post trellis in. All right guys, so remember on the other end we're putting them 1.5 feet at the bottom, 3.5 feet at the top. Again, just eyeballing it. Because we've got this landscape fabric in, what I'm going to do is just take a razor blade and I'm going to slit it just enough to be able to get that T-post in. I don't like cutting holes in this, but it's our best option, and I think that that'll work well. It's about 25 feet. I think if I go 3 spaces here, might be a little bit over 25 feet, but I think it'll work well. I think the trick is going to be us trying to figure out how in the world we're going to stand some of these up that they are erect, but they're kind of wanting to just sprawl onto the ground. If we did not have this landscape fabric here and we had done this year, we probably would have had them rooted all into the ground. So I guess it's good and bad, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how these do on the 2nd year, because several of the varieties we have only produce on 2nd year canes. All right guys, so hopefully this makes sense in regards to the spacing here. 1.5 feet at the bottom, about 3.5 at the top. Then we'll run 2 to 3 pieces of wire down through here and get these to stand up and get them up off the ground. Again, this is something we should have done when we first planted them. As we get these T-posts in, next what we're going to do is actually run the wire. The first line should be 18 to 24 inches and the next should be approximately 5 feet. For us, I think what we're going to do is just run these kind of near the top. You'll also notice that on this back, the second set that we put in, we actually had the T-post facing the other direction, because that wire is going to come and actually catch on these nubs. I think it'll probably be all right. It's not going to be a lot of weight, and we'll tie it tight on this end. But on that other end, I think it will work better because your pressure from those vines are pushing this way. Instead of into the T, they're pushing into the flat part here. And just like we do with everything else, we're going to eyeball the height. So I'm going to say just below my knee. Now also, just remember, I need to get these standing up, so I'll have to work my way up through these. Hopefully y'all can see in my water soaker hoses or drip hoses here. I've got a blackberry that I've rooted, and you can see we have lots and lots of great roots there. You see all those roots there. And the way that we started this is this vine here actually was way up into this tomato cage, and we pulled it around and it actually comes off this last one here. So it comes in and comes down and comes back up. I basically just put the end of it in. It has had some new growth here. You can see that there. So what I am going to do, just come down here. I'm going to snip this off so that we'll have a whole new plant that we can either go ahead and plant now next to this, or we can let it root in a pot for the next year. So this is just one way that you can propagate blackberries. You can also put them directly in at the tip and then cut them off, and that way you will have a rooted vine as well. I potentially could have cut this off and had 2 shoots coming out, but I'm not sure if the second one would have produced as well. If you know, comment down below and let me know. But again, I did this earlier in the year, kind of tried to keep it watered. You can see it does have good roots. So essentially it is done very well, and we're going to try and do this at least on several others. You do sacrifice some production because you're cutting off one end, but it will allow us to be able to multiply how many blackberries we have, so that in the future we'll have tons of different plants. All right guys, so this should be a perfect reason as to why you want to do this before your blackberry vines actually grow up. It's very hard to be able to pull them up and have enough tension without either 1, messing up the vines, or 2, not getting enough tension on it to be able to lift them up. We're going to go ahead and try and do our next level here and see if that might help with getting some of these vines up, and we might be able to come back and tighten this other side. This side here, you can see it's pretty tight. So much weight on it, you just really can't get it as tight as you want it. All right guys, so we got some rain. It's a blessing. This time of year we get a good bit. Wrapping this up. Again, do this before your blackberries grow. Much easier to work and do. We made it work. It's not perfect. You'll notice the small one here was a start from last year that or a year or so ago that I tipped. And then this empty hole here is actually a Ouachita, which this was a Ouachita as well. So Ponca, dead Ouachita. And I believe, I have to look back at my video, but this is, I know the rest of these other are all PrimeArk. I've got a Traveler in here somewhere. The other ones are Freedom. And then that one is a Freedom that I rooted this year. And then I've got two other that I actually buried the roots because the roots were just crazy in a pot. And two more small plants came up. So that should give me the spots there. And then if we decide we want to go any further up with blackberries, I also have approximately 8 other new starts. We'll see how those do by the spring. Picked up some on discount, and hopefully you'll catch that video soon.